Hello and welcome to Never Miss a Monday. I am your host, Stacey Garcia, and I cannot wait to introduce our special guest today. Her name is Andrea Owen, and she is a keynote speaker, life coach, author, and hellraiser. Andrea Owen is creating a global impact in women's empowerment with her books being translated into 19 languages and available in 23 countries. She helps high achieving women maximize unshakable confidence, master their mindset, and magnify their courage. Welcome to the show, Andrea. I'm so happy to have you on.
Stacey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I got to talk to you. I know it hasn't been released yet, but I was a guest on your podcast and
Yes.
we were connected by Scotty Slaughter and Laura Cathcart Robbins, the best of the best. And
hmm
I think life is all about connection, and you are such a gift in my life now. So thank you for
Oh, thank
being here.
you. I'm excited to have this conversation, like kind of like for your audience for the first time, and just see what kind of magic we can come up with.
I can't wait to learn more about you. And I started reading your book and digging deeper into you and your amazing podcast. And I just want to get right to it. So tell me, Andrea, what was the turning point? What was your turning point in your story that pushed you towards your work that you're doing now?
Well, I was always interested in it sort of from afar, but I didn't know anyone else who did. So I'm a product of the 70s. I grew up in the 80s. And I mean, I remember, I don't know if ever said this on a podcast, but like the very first like person who ever did yoga was this woman like after Sesame Street in the morning. And it was like yoga with Layla or something. And she had this really long, beautiful hair. So I mean, I thought anyone who was into any kind of personal growth like that was, that was for quote unquote hippies or people that like to go see head shrinks. Like that's the kind of environment I grew up in.
Uh-huh.
And so I was already always kind of in secret. And then my life sort of exploded when I was 30 years old. I had been married for a couple of years to someone I had been with since I was a teenager. We were talking about conceiving our first child. And he had an affair with our neighbor and got her pregnant. So we split up. It was devastating. I know I'm like racing through the story and
Wow,
but it
no.
was devastating. And then I immediately started dating someone that I thought was Mr. Right. I ignored a few red flags along the way because I was just out of this I was going through my divorce at the time. Turns out that person, we were in a relationship for about 9 or 10 months. He lied about having a terminal illness in order to cover up his opioid addiction, which was devastating. And then I also found out that I was pregnant with his child. So it was my sort of like kind of WTF moment where it was literally like I was on my bedroom floor, not in the bathroom at this moment in time, but bedroom floor on the phone with my sister, crying, thinking like, how did I get here? Like all my friends were getting married and having babies and buying homes and like all these things that we're kind of supposed to do around that age. And my life was a mess.
Mm.
But the good news about that was that's what it took for me to realize like how much control I actually did have over my life instead of putting all my happiness in someone else's basket. That's sort of was my big wake up call, and it took me a minute to get my bearings.
Mm.
But that's really when I pushed forward in my own personal growth journey, and then very quickly signed up for life coach training, and then the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow.
I
Okay, so
know.
let's unpack a couple. So the first guy you did not have a child with.
We did not. No,
Okay,
but he
so
went on to have a child with the woman he had an affair with, and they
right.
ended up not working out. People always DM me and ask me that when I tell this story. They're like, "Are they still together?" And they want the tea. And I'm like, "No, they actually didn't end up staying together."
Wow, there's so much there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I want to take away from that, and I think that anyone can relate that has gone through things where it's so easy to be like, why is this happening to me? Because
Yes.
you feel like a victim in those situations.
Yeah.
But starting to, and this is something that I've been learning with all of my struggles, is instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Kind of thinking like, what is this trying to teach me?
Right.
What can I do with these experiences? And that's actually what Kabbalah has taught me recently. That's something that I've been getting into in my spirituality. So, did you have any practices when you started going through your transformation and growth?
Yes. So I had been raised in the Lutheran church. And so my parents both grew up Catholic. And so it was a pretty heavy influence. And I grew up going to church. And luckily for me, all these decades out, I know I have a lot of friends and colleagues who have religious trauma. I never really internalized any of the really difficult stuff. I walked away with some not so great lessons. However, although I
Mhm.
did sort of like, quote unquote, leave the church when I was like an older teenager, I had a foundation of faith. And that was something that I leaned on a lot during those like acute moments of being on the floor in the bedroom.
Mhm.
And I had an extraordinarily a spiritual moment on some cliffs. I'm from San Diego and went for a run and had that moment of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be okay. Like when everything around me was falling apart, like I had those like spiritual moments of peace, which really pushed me, and again, it took a while, but pushed me to have a spiritual transition in terms of like I don't participate in organized religion anymore, but I have an even deeper spiritual practice now than I did back then.
Mhm.
And so I was thankful to have that foundation and also be able to kind of take what I needed and leave the rest at that moment in my life. Yes, and it's continued to this day.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So, here on Never Miss a Monday, we share our non-negotiables in life.
Okay.
Okay. Anything. So, for me, it's my diet, my plant-based eating, daily exercise, daily meditation, self-care, growth mindset. Like these are all of
Yep.
what I hold so dear. What does Never Miss a Monday mean to you in life, in healing, and consistency?
I think I wanna say this too from the get-go on this question, is that give everyone listening, like, give yourself the flexibility and, like, let's normalize that these are gonna change throughout your life.
Yes,
I'm sure
absolutely.
you talk about that, like, it's the same with our values. I when I teach values, whether I'm giving a keynote or working with someone one-on-one, I tell them, "These will change based on the season of your life, so don't think that you have to marry these." You know? Um
Absolutely.
'Cause what was a non-negotiable 5 years ago might not be one today, and so for now, for me, it is a lot of the things that you mentioned of, f lately so I just turned 50 this year, and it's a lot of grace and self-compassion because I think that when you have as much self-awareness as one gets who's been doing this for 2 decades now, I have the ability to put things together very quickly. In other words, like, I will see my own behavior and realize fairly quickly if it's something that I'm proud of or something that doesn't feel right that I might need to change or make amends for, things like that. What I do less of now is beat myself up for having you know, the moment in the first place or kind of realizing I have this bad habit or something like that. So self-compassion and grace is one of my non-negotiables. And for sure, listening to my own intuition, whether that is
Yeah.
I'm hungry and I need a snack, even if I only have 5 minutes before I have to sit down this client, I can surely, throw a yogurt down or something, even though that I don't love doing that, but just eating when I'm hungry, things like that, or whether it's about a certain decision to be made. I have spent decades ignoring my intuition and self-abandoning. And so now for me, a way for me to kind of correct and heal my nervous system is to trust myself in small things and big things. Small things like I'm hungry and big things like a big decision about something.
Wow. I'm gonna add that to my non-negotiables. That is both of them actually, I mean, giving yourself grace, number
Yes.
1, is huge. That is huge, being gentle with yourself, and also reminding yourself that you change just like the seasons, and so we have to know that what's working for us today may not tomorrow and vice versa. So I think
Yeah.
all of that is beautiful, and we do talk a lot about listening to your intuition and how to do so. Let's talk about change because change is such
Mhm.
a loaded word. Everyone wants to change, but very few follow through with change. So, what
Right.
separates intention from transformation, in your opinion?
So in lots of things. And
Mhm.
I talk about this in the book too. And so intention, and I have a fitness background, like, so, I've been in the wellness industry for 20 years, and those first handful of years where I was a personal trainer on the gym floor. I also worked corporately for the American Council on Exercise. I still love the company. So, I come from a fitness background, so it's interesting to me the similarities in fitness and just personal growth in general. Um, I think that For sure. And I completely lost my train of thought, Stacey. I had the answer in my head
Welcome to my life. That's okay. We're talking about transformation and from
versus
yeah.
intention. Yes. Okay. So setting the intention is great. And
Mhm,
I will say a million times, you will hear me say, like, that is the most important part is setting an intention, whether
mhm,
I'm going into a plant medicine ceremony or I'm going into setting up a new workout routine. Intention is everything. But I do think that everyone needs to get to a place. I was just explaining this to a client this morning. So if you look at like intention is one side of the mountain and like the follow through is the other side of the mountain. There is a rickety old bridge, like a suspension bridge in between. And this is it's the
yeah,
point between intention and like real transformation. And the reason I say it's a rickety bridge is because that liminal space, I don't think we talk about that space enough. Like when you set the intention and you're ready, but then you're not really quite ready to change the behavior or take the action that is
mhm,
necessary to get to the transformation. This is where grace and compassion come in too, because we are so hard on ourselves about, okay, I realize I need to make a change. I need to go for it. And oh my gosh, there's
mm,
grief in that liminal space of like not knowing what's ahead, or like leaving old versions of you behind. And I just don't feel like it gets talked about enough, that weird rickety bridge. And so I always like to tell people it's okay to take your time in that space. When I got sober, I knew for 2 whole months that I needed to stop drinking, and I kept drinking for 2 months. A lot of people stay there for years, that place where,
right,
like, know they have a problem, but they don't make it like a real change, and that's okay. Like, your pain tolerance is your pain tolerance.
yeah,
The more you beat yourself up over it, that's not gonna get you any closer to your
yeah,
transformation. So, again, yeah, I get on my soapbox about grace and compassion. And please know, everybody, like, I am an Aries. Like, I had a business for years called Your Kick-Ass Life. Like, I am all for big moonshot goals and like taking really big action and declaring it, whether it's
mhm,
like to your, I'm sorry, declaring it, whether it's like you're speaking to your water or you're putting it on your Facebook public feed. But yeah, be
I'm
easy on
right there with you.
yourself.
No, it's funny. So I have a fitness background as well. And so
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying and how it relates to personal growth. And I like to look at it as more of like a roller coaster because it's not linear
Right.
and there's ebbs and flows and ups and downs and learning to be comfortable in those uncomfortable phases. Because when you think I'm ready to change, you're expecting to just travel up. But
Yes.
that's not the
Positive
way it
trajectory.
there exactly, right? So I think we set unrealistic expectations sometimes as well of number one, how
A lot.
long it takes to get to where you want to be, but also you are going to have ups and downs. Like that's just part of life. So how do you personally stay accountable when motivation fades or old habits resurface?
Well, I'm going to, say the same thing I've been saying the whole time. Lots of grace and compassion. But
Mhm,
also, I spend a decent amount of time thinking about, like, if I become demotivated around something or just not inspired or bored or whatever it is, I used to not be this way, but I spend a decent amount of time now thinking about asking myself questions and kind of coaching myself of like, is this something that I really want anymore? Like, have my
mhm,
goals changed?
mhm,
And I think that as we progress in our life and you know, we shed old versions of ourselves because, like, the person I am sitting here having this conversation with you in 2025 at 50 years old, like, I am not the same person that I was at 35 when I first started launched my website and everything. Like that, so much of my motivation for certain things has gone down and kind of gone
mhm,
away. And I don't make myself wrong for that anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay, that 35-year-old version who was
mhm,
scrappy and who could work like
mhm.
12-hour days and be proud of herself, like, that girl is retired, you know?
Right.
I love
Absolutely.
her, but she doesn't exist anymore.
I love that. I
Yeah.
that's a great way of looking at it. That it's so off topic, but that made me think of my daughter this morning. We like got into it. We were getting ready for school and we were like had because if I leave 1 to 2 minutes later, we hit
Yes.
traffic, and then it's like an extra
Mhm.
15, 20.
Or you get
And my
behind a
daughter,
bus. Yeah.
right? And she just had her birthday, and she got all these new clothes, and she's like, "Mom, I need your sweatshirt, your hoodie." And I'm like, "Ava, tomorrow is finally gonna feel like fall in LA, and I'm really looking forward to wearing that. And so, no, like, you can't wear that today." And we just got into it, and I was like, "What about all the clothes I just got you last month?" And she's like, "I just am not into it anymore." Same thing, and she's like, "That's just not like, I'm flowing this way, mom. I'm more," and it just was a different example of like, yeah,
Yes.
and that is something, especially as a woman, we do change, and you kinda just gotta roll with it. You kinda just
Yeah.
gotta roll.
Mhm.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about your journey through addiction, through
Yeah.
alcoholism, and how like you got sober. And I think it's amazing that in just 2 months you were able to make that change. I really do. When we recognize that we're self-sabotaging ourselves, how can we interrupt that cycle?
Ooh, okay. So I think that I can answer that question and I'll use my sobriety as an example. And so when I realized that alcohol and I had a really toxic relationship
Mm.
and I knew and I tried to moderate and was like that feels like torture. I knew that I needed to abstain. And fortunately for me, my dad got sober when I was 18, so I kind of knew what it looked like to be someone who wasn't like a traditional
Mm.
alcoholic and what a high bottom looks like and so I knew that I had to get sober and so the realizing I was self-sabotaging part was looking at the patterns that I had noticed. And how old was I? 36 or 37?
I was gonna
And
ask.
I
Okay.
was only like a few years into my like truly into my personal growth journey and but it was a few years is a decent amount of time. So what I saw was that it wasn't just the drinking and you'll probably hear a lot of people when they're talking about addiction they say like drinking was just the symptoms or the drugs were just the symptom and that was the same for me of a larger problem. And for me the larger problem was that I was terrified of my life experiences.
Mm.
I was terrified of the emotions of it really like what it comes down to is like that's how I was self-sabotaging. I was so overwhelmed by my own feelings because it was something I couldn't control, something I had been called crazy for, because I'm a woman and I was young and
Mm.
expressive in,
Mhm.
in my
Uh-huh.
emotions and was in a relationship where someone gaslit me and called me crazy. So I was afraid of showing them. I was afraid of processing them. I was afraid of talking about them. I was really afraid if anyone I cared about showed their emotions because I didn't know how to show up for people when they were emotional because I didn't know how to show up for myself when I was emotional. So the reason that I drank was to dull all of those senses and dull all of the emotions and then I felt like I could show up as my creative,
Mm.
fun self. And so the realizing I was self-sabotaging was like, "Oh, this is a way for me to be small." It was the same reason that I was eyeball deep in my eating disorder in my 20s and codependency and then love addiction. Like I replaced these processes, the codependency and the love addiction and the eating disorder with ways that so I didn't have to look at the things that were really, really painful in my life. So that was a kind of a long way of answering like the self-sabotage part. Like it was easier for me to stay in this pattern of avoiding, of
Of
numbing
course.
out, of saying no to my life
Yeah.
rather than open up Pandora's box and what was scary and uncertain. I didn't have control over it. And so it was just this cycle that I found myself in. And
Right.
sobriety from alcohol was sort of like I hate using the term like the last mountain to climb, but it was a big one in terms of take eliminating that from my life so that I could try to live my life actually facing it.
So how did you wake up one day and decide to face it?
Oof. I did some research and was reading about the fact that the thing that scared me the most was I knew intuitively,
Yeah.
and research tells us
Yeah.
that people who really do have like a predisposition to dive into things like addiction,
Mhm.
we don't get better. We just get worse. And so we can try and try and try to cut back on our drinking or whatever symptom it is. Um, and we just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And then the other thing that really scared me was research shows that women tend to get worse faster than men because of the way that we metabolize alcohol. So I knew, and I was, 36 at the time. I had two little babies. I had a brand new business. I was married, I was happily married at the time and thought to myself, if I stay on this path, it's kind of a guarantee like how the story is going to end. Like it's pretty certain how this is going to end and it might not happen quickly. That might not be good news. Like it might be a very slow march to really like my death, and if it's not a literal death, it's my soul dying. So that was enough for me. And also it, it was kind of the first time it helped being in this doing this for a living. Like I help people have a better life and I was like going to continue drinking. I couldn't deal with that hypocrisy. Like I was so ashamed. So sometimes shame motivates us to change for the better. So that was the case for me. So yeah, that was it. That's all it took for me.
That's amazing. So I want to step back a little because you were talking about make some noise.
Mhm.
Indirectly, you were. I'm
Yeah.
reading it right now. I'm finding so much value in it, and I highly recommend reading it. And I think that so many women can connect with that message because I think almost every woman has been made to feel small in one way or another throughout their life. It could have happened in childhood, in adult relationships, in a job setting. So, may I ask you, what was your turning point to say, okay, I'm seeing that this book needs to be written? Like, how did you go about that process?
Oh, yeah. The knowing that the book needed to be written was because I realized that with my second book, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, I outlined 14 behaviors that women tend to do, the patterns that I see in my clients and the women in my community that work until they don't. So it's like the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the overachieving, control, those types of behaviors. And then when they don't work anymore, they feel like shit. And we're like, why do I feel so terrible? And it's like, well, because your coping mechanisms
Mhm.
aren't in alignment with the person that you want to be. So that's what that whole book was about. So then I started to realize as I talked about that book more and more, so many of the, if not all of these behaviors that become habits in our lives are due to our social conditioning. Like we were brought up to believe that not only we should be small, but that we're valued for it. Like we're
Mhm.
praised for it, for making for putting ourselves in the background of other people's lives, for being of service, for being productive. And it's like some of it is gender specific in terms of like how good girls are brought up to be good women, and some of it is that comes specifically, I think, from our culture here in the West and capitalism and patriarchy and things like that. And so I was like, oh wait a minute, it's not our fault. It's not our fault.
Mhm.
And so the reason I wanted to write the book was to point that out and also tell the reader, hey, this is about unlearning everything that you've been taught. Like that, and that's a big deal. And
Mhm.
that's hard to do because it's not just about like girl power and just speak up. It's like you're having to also heal your nervous system here. And that
Mhm.
was kind of the main message of the book is like that it's kind of not easy and it's frustrating, but let's control what we can and take some responsibility for being the people that we want to be while healing from this other stuff.
Right, absolutely. So last season, we had Amanda Klutz on the show, and I asked her, I forgot what the question was, but it resonates. Her answer was like, every time I walk into a room, I try to be as big as possible.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that every single woman probably has to tell herself because I don't think that comes naturally. I think we are kind of trained to walk into a room and kind of feel it out and see where we belong in this room. And to really kind of find your voice like that and find your power and your courage. I mean, courage is such a conscious decision.
Yeah.
So, what would courage look like to you in practice?
Courage demands self-trust to me.
Mm,
And Self-trust for me is an umbrella term that encompasses many different behaviors. And one of them that is important is trust in our own resilience. And so I think that people who really struggle with their own courage, it's not that you're afraid um, of the thing that you're about to do, you're afraid of the possible emotional fallout from it.
Mhm.
And so for some people, it might be they're afraid of any and all emotions that might be during and after the thing. But most of us are afraid of what if I feel shame if I fail at it? What if I feel or just general embarrassment if it doesn't
Yeah.
work out? What if like there's so many what ifs I think that we don't even consciously think about, but your nervous system is tracking it for sure.
Mhm.
100%. And so, when I think about courage now, and this isn't something I've always thought about, like I don't think about it so much like on the front end because, and for me personally, I've never really been someone who's afraid to jump because I don't think about consequences, and that is a risk problem that I have.
You said you are an Aries.
Propensity for risk, I know, and I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, if anyone knows. It's basically like I don't my mom used to joke and say, "Andrea likes to run around corners with her arms wide open, but her eyes closed." And so and I kind of love that, the description that she uses, and it just means that I'm usually just I jump blind and then learn my lessons retroactively instead of prospectively. Pro is that right? Prospectively, yes. So, I think about resilience. Like,
Mhm.
okay, if I fall on my face, if worst case scenario happens, will I be able to recover? Like, or what would I do to recover? That way, like, I can admit to myself, yeah, it would suck terribly if this didn't work out, but I'll get back up. I am 100% on resilience in my life. None of
I
it has
love
been
that.
easy, but all
No,
of it has
none
been
of it.
successful.
That's amazing. So, how can you share some like very small daily acts of courage that can help build confidence over time?
I think that, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but, like, the thing that has helped me, I think, the most with my courage is having compassion for myself and everything from forgiving myself for past mistakes and also truly leaning in and realizing that I'm
Mm,
human and that I will make a lot of mistakes and that
mhm,
everything is cyclical. And that type of thing has helped me just calm down. I think maybe this is like a gift of now being in my 50s that doesn't everything doesn't have to be an emergency.
mhm,
Everything doesn't like I don't have to walk into everything perfect or all-knowing or even with like the most motivation, inspiration, and creativity I can have. Like I
mhm.
can come in kind of half awake and bumbling and it's a lot my life is a lot more peaceful now that I focus on that instead of the anxiousness of scarcity and what
Yeah.
ifs and things like that.
Well, that is goals right there. I
Thank
mean, to
you.
just
I
say that
thank
you're
plant
living
medicine
in
a lot for it. I do. We can talk about that if you want, because I know somebody in
Yeah,
recovery usually
go
doesn't
ahead,
say that.
share, share.
It's been so I started with like, just for a little bit of background. So I got sober, it was 14 years in September. I just had my 14 years of absolutely no alcohol.
Amazing.
And so about around 2019, I started thinking about plant medicine to be used in, therapeutically,
Mhm.
not recreationally. That's not something I would mess with, as someone who identifies as an addict, but I had been looking at the research and I had done like psilocybin in the 90s for fun and always had a good experience. But I was never someone who ever did MDMA or even acid, only because like it just wasn't ever presented to me. Like, trust me, I would have done it. Like the risk taker girl would have said yes. I just never did it. So, I found myself in my late 40s thinking like, okay, for me, the interest in plant medicine started when I realized I had some trauma from that first relationship I told you about, that I felt like I couldn't land the plane. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I've been through so much therapy. I'm, remarried and I have kids and I haven't even seen this person that caused my trauma in a decade and a half. Why is this still here? Well, it's because trauma lives in our bodies and our nervous system runs the show. So that's kind of what got me interested in plant medicine. And I'm like, I wonder if I could move the needle with this particular topic. And so I started with ketamine, and it was incredibly helpful with that particular topic of of healing and integrating my trauma. And that's so I've also done psilocybin therapeutically and ayahuasca. And I will tell you with
Oh,
all three of those modalities, and ketamine isn't considered a plant medicine, but it's a psychedelic. With all three of those, here's what I walked away with. I felt like I was able to integrate everything I have ever learned that is in my brain, that, even, like, things that I have written about, like, these lessons, and because there's a difference between because have you ever said this or heard someone say, like, on the topic of worthiness, like, they say, like, "I know I'm a worthy human being, like, I know I'm worthy of love, but I can't shake this feeling sometimes that I'm not, or my
mhm.
behavior shows otherwise." That is because our nervous system doesn't know yet. Like, we haven't been able to really integrate the lesson. That's what I felt like plant medicine did for me, is that, there's lots of things that have sort of, like, pushed the needle forward quickly
Mhm.
in my therapy, like EMDR, it was one of them. Um, I'm trying to think, like, talk therapy has always been helpful, but it's a very, very slow process. Plant medicine, I feel like, was, almost like a shortcut. I hate to use that word, and
No.
plant medicine is not for everyone. I wanna say that too. It's really not for everyone, and it's not a cure-all. For me and for many people, it can be a thing that kind of just, like, gives you that extra push in your growth.
I don't know if it's an extra push, but it's a quicker breakthrough.
Yeah,
Probably for
it
you,
really
and
is.
that's what that was my experience with energy healing, was it was a
Okay.
much quicker breakthrough, and I love talk therapy, I'm a fan, but I felt like I got so much out of one session with energy healing that could have taken years otherwise, or maybe never
Yes,
would have even gone there because you dig deep into a subconscious that you don't have during talk therapy. So I don't see it as like one or the other. I kind of see it how all of that should be kind of used. And so
I agree.
so and number 1, I just wanna let you know, I so appreciate how vocal you are about your journey. And I feel the same way. I feel like it's given me purpose with my
Mhm.
struggles to share them as well. So, how did sharing your experience help you heal?
Which experience? Like, the plant
Any of
medicine
them.
specifically or any of them? Oh
No,
my
any of them.
gosh. Well, that's how
Divorce,
I start.
infidelity, like,
Yeah,
all of it.
that's how I started. Well, I wanna say 2 before I forget.
Yeah.
Um, Plant medicine brought me to energy healing. So I was always skeptical of energy healing because I think I may have been afraid of it, or just I didn't know enough information. Like, I would see people doing Reiki who are, like, holding their hands over someone's body, and I was like, "That's weird. That's cute." You know, like, I'm not gonna pay someone $200 to do that, but you knock yourself out. So, plant medicine for me, like, awakened something, and anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But the sharing my story, it was kind of an accident. So I started blogging back in the glory days of blogging, back in the early aughts, as they say. Yeah, it was about '07, '08. I started a blog back on Blogspot where I was writing about my eating disorder because I was at that time really starting to unpack and my symptoms were going away. So I was able to write about it and talk
Mhm.
about it from a different perspective. And lo and behold, people started reading it and were like, and these were people I didn't know, and they were leaving comments, and I just was like, "Oh my gosh." Meanwhile, some of my family members are like, "Why on earth are you talking publicly about something so personal?" You know, and because no one we knew was doing that, and blogs were still new, and so I found such a community in other people who, even if they didn't have the same circumstances as I did, and now it's just so normalized to share your story
Mhm.
online, and but back
Mhm.
then, even when I got sober in 2011, like, there weren't a whole lot of people talking, and I waited a whole year until I talked about
Wow.
my recovery, and the amount of emails and messages I got, especially in, like, that first 5 years of women coming to me and saying, you telling your story and admitting that you had this relationship with alcohol that you needed to look at, like, I changed my whole life." Like, that is worth everything to me. All of the difficult months I've had doing this, like, all the second guessing, all the judgment from family members, like, worth it for that. That's how it's really changed my life, is knowing that I've helped other people.
That gave me all the warm and fuzzies. I need to go back really quick though to what you were you went straight from how Reiki was not appealing to you, but then you did plant medicine
Had a
but you didn't
Kundalini
finish.
awakening. Had a full-on Kundalini awakening, like,
Yeah.
body movements and everything.
It's wild, isn't
I didn't
it?
know what
It's
it
wild
was.
how you can look at something and be like, "That's so weird," and then you experience it and you're like, "How do I get more?"
Well, yeah, like, what have I been missing too this whole time? Like, and maybe the reason I thought it was weird because there was a part of me that was longing to get there and
Right, right,
felt
right.
like, "Oh, I'm not deep enough or spiritual enough or cool
Right,
enough to be a part of that group." And not that
right,
anyone made me feel bad, but,
right.
like, that's what we make up when we're scared of something,
Mhm.
and it has
Absolutely.
truly, like, just thrown me into a whole 'nother world for the better.
Absolutely. No, I
Mhm.
love that. We're gonna go into some rapid fire questions for
'Kay.
fun, but before we do, I just wanna wrap up what we were talking about, and for someone that's, like, currently facing their own hard stuff, right?
Mhm.
What can you say to someone who is in it right now?
Mm. I remember my darkest moment, I'll try not to be too verbose. I had a moment where, it was, like, the end of the night, and it was a really, really dark time in my life, and it was that moment where you set your phone down, like, when your whole world is falling apart, like, maybe it's, like, that first few days of a breakup or something, or someone you love dearly, like, you've hurt them, and you
Mhm,
know that they're just so mad at you, and I
mhm,
had to put my phone down and turn all the lights off, and it's, like, that few minutes of trying to fall asleep, like, when you're not distracted by anything, and I remember thinking about taking my own life and just thinking like that I don't wanna die necessarily, but I also don't wanna be here, and so I started contemplating that, and it was probably the furthest I have gone down that thought process, and it truly scared me, and I did reach out and get help. This was a couple of years ago, and so I say all that to say this, one of the most important things that I did that helped me get out of that place was ask my friends to keep reminding me that where I was at was temporary, because I couldn't remind myself that. I had gotten to a place where all of the tools, for resiliency and hope, and feeling better, I couldn't even reach for them. Like, it was so dark and I felt like it was like tunnel vision, and I knew that that was a deep depression I was in, and so I sent an SOS out to, like, 2 or 3 of my friends and just said, "Here's what I need the most, is that if you can just remind me every day that this is not my new normal, like, I will see a the light of
yeah,
day." And they were so thankful that I told
mhm,
them, like, exactly what it was that I need. Easier for them. And so
right.
that's my advice is just ask for what you want, even if it's that. Take what I just said and ask for that from your friends.
Don't go through it alone.
Mm-mm.
There's no reason to go through it alone.
No.
No, thank you for that, and thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's amazing. Are you ready for some rapid fire
I
questions?
hope so. Clearly, I have a hard time with, like, few words, so I'll try my best.
No, 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 it'll be fun. Okay. What is one book that's changed your life?
Just one. Let's see. It was, like, right here, but I think I put it away. It's called The Heroine's Journey by Maureen
Ooh.
Murdoch. It's her
Oh,
take on the hero's journey because she heard a talk by Joseph Campbell when she was in grad school and asked him, "What's the hero's journey for women?" And he said, "There is none because women are the goal in the hero's journey. They don't need to go on it." And she said, "What?" And she wrote a book, and this was, like, in 1990, and it's amazing. It goes through, like, the whole cycle that women go through. Look it
thank
up.
you. I'm
Yes.
definitely gonna look that one up. Okay, next one. Give me a mantra or a quote that keeps you grounded.
God, wherever you go, there you are, because I heard that in
Mm.
middle school, and it just
Ah.
reminds me that I cannot run away from my problems.
I love that, and that also kinda brings into, what you were thinking before also is, like, everything is temporary,
Yeah.
which is a mantra for me too, so I
Yeah.
I love all that. What's your current never miss a Monday habit?
I always block out, the first half of my Monday, and I don't have any appointments at all, and so that is for catching up on email, it's for complaining about how much I don't like Mondays, it's for, like, all these things that take more time than you think that they will, and I've done that for years, and because like, the last thing I wanna do is have an important meeting or interview somebody for my podcast, like, at 8 a.m. on a Monday. I need time to settle in.
I love it. You kind of, like, shed. You shed all of that excess energy for the week that you don't need so you can have the space to bring in what you do.
Yeah, I realize
I
like that
love
kinda takes up a decent amount of energy for me to, like, show up, like, with this much, like, charm. Like, come on. I need a minute to get
it.
there.
I don't believe you, but I totally get
I
you.
know.
What is one thing you hope every listener walks away remembering today?
That I have repeated the phrase grace and self-compassion many times, and even if that seems like such a foreign concept to them, maybe look it up or, I don't know, talk to ChatGPT about it. Whatever you
Mhm,
do, journal on it. Like, what does that look
mhm.
like in your life, and do you need more of it?
I love that. I love that. I love all of it. Where can everyone find you, support you? And I know you've got a new book coming out next month, so
Yay, I
share
so
all the
right.
things.
Yeah, so AndreaOwen.com is, like, the place, and I have a podcast, which by the time this airs, your episode might be out, or if it's not, it's very, very soon, and the podcast is called Make Some Noise.
It's a great podcast. It's
Yeah, it
very
is.
exciting.
Thank you.
Well, I got a lot out of our conversation today. A couple of my takeaways I just want to share with the audience because there was so much in this episode. Go back and listen through, but change happens through consistent action, not just intention. It's
Mhm.
great to say it out loud, write it down, but we need to be consistent. And we didn't go too big, but we did into reparenting yourself and
Yeah.
really refocusing is all about self compassion, boundaries, and accountability. Courage is a choice and one that gets easier every time we practice it, which I'm going to take with me. I love that. And sharing your story can be the bridge between pain and power.
Mhm. Yeah, very
I
much.
got a lot out of this and I just adored and I can't wait till we chat again. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, and I'm grateful for everyone's time today. Thanks, everybody.